Hello, everyone. This is Brian Belay from Crowdwise. Thank you for joining us today. Now, Crowdwise is an online community for startup investors and founders in equity crowdfunding. We're helping you take your investing and capital raising skills to the next level. Today, I'm very happy to be here with Jeffrey O'Neill, founder and CEO of Zephyr Aerospace, currently raising on Republic. Now, we're going to be diving into Zephyr Aerospace a little bit deeper for investors, and also going to be taking away some lessons from Jeff in terms of what his team and he has learned from raising capital on Republic. So, Jeff, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, to get started, do you want to give us a quick introduction as to who you are, what your business is, and how you came to work on this business?
Sure. So Zephyr Aerospace produces high-density lie-flat seating solutions for any mode of long-distance transport. Our first product, which is currently listed on the Republic website, is actually a solution for commercial air travel. And how it works is as a retrofit to a current Premium Economy class seat. We swap that out with a lie-flat environment with aisle access and complete privacy for all travelers, and we hope airlines can offer that at a very similar price point. So we're trying to bring the business class experience further back in the plane, make it more affordable, and ensure a safer, healthier, more comfortable in-flight experience.
Fantastic. Now, I know that founders have, many options when they're looking to raise capital. I'm curious if you wouldn't mind just take like a quick minute or two and talk about why are you doing crowdfunding? Why'd you choose equity crowdfunding for your campaign?
So we decided on Republic mostly because of their affiliation with the television show Meet the Drapers, where we actually pitched our product about a year ago. And we realized that really there was pretty much universal sentiment and I guess a correlation between travelers that were very unhappy with the state of air travel and how unpleasant a lot of it has become. And there needed to be a better way to make it more bearable and more affordable. And so we thought the idea resonated with the general public very well and very easily. And as it turns out, a lot of the PR that we received as a result of Republic was really targeting the end user, not the airlines who are actually our customers, but the beneficiaries of the product and how that can change their travel experience and what value they see in it.
Got it. And then, for any of the potential entrepreneurs or other founders who are out there listening to this, do you have any quick tips or advice or lessons learned that you would share with them if they're looking to raise capital on a similar path?
I think for an equity crowdfunding platform, that really the most important thing is to find a product that's very relatable. And ours was loosely aligned with a health solution because we were trying to find a more healthy way for people to travel. And the other thing I would recommend is really understand your audience and know how to connect with them. We knew that COVID was an opportunity for us to better shape an improvement in personal safety and personal comfort. And that's really what people will be expecting in the future. And COVID is changing so much of the world that we know. So find something that's relevant, find something that resonates, and find something that you can explain in 5 words. Because if it's too complex, you're going to lose a lot of attention span.
Perfect. Now, let's get into Zephyr Aerospace a little bit more and, specifically your product. I'm kind of curious, I'm assuming there's maybe a little bit of a story behind kind of why this is your passion and how you came up with the idea, but can you go back and kind of tell us how you got to where you're at today?
So the advent of this, the original idea stemmed from a very long flight I was flying from New York to Singapore about 2.5 years ago. And at the time, it was a new route and it was one of the longest routes, nonstop flights in the world. It was 19 hours and 45 minutes on a plane. And I had not been able to upgrade to business class. So I was seated in a pretty standard economy seat, a little bit extra legroom. And at hour 11 in the flight, which is more or less just over the halfway point, mind you, I just grew restless. I couldn't find a way to sleep. I was contorting my body in very, very, very strange ways. And I realized, I'm flying on the highest rated airline in the world and I can't sleep and it's miserable. And now for the next 7 or 8 hours of the flight, I was worried about how much of this I'm going to physically pay for when I actually arrive. So it really distracted me from from the excitement I had about getting to Singapore and wanting to explore and being able to get off the plane and go right into sightseeing and to the hotel. And I basically slept for the first day and a half because my body was so tired and had to adjust to local time zone. So, and I realized that people in the front of the plane were enjoying a lie flat space, and they had paid almost 7 times the price. 7 times the price for a bed. I mean, literally, that should be illegal. I don't know how airlines get away with it, but the laws of supply and demand dictate that there's more demand for people to want to sleep on a flight that's 19 hours, pure and simple. And so I realized there has to be something in the middle. There has to be a middle ground, not a beautiful premium product and not a really crappy one, but there must be something in the middle. And that's really where the idea for Zephyr came from.
Awesome. I think, we can probably all relate it, whether it's a 19 plus hour flight or even shorter ones at some point of wishing that there was more comfort. So, the value proposition to the customers is definitely apparent. Can you talk about how does your design compare to what airlines are using today that these would be replacing, like cost, weight, all those different factors?
So the main difference is that traditionally premium economy class seating is no different from a standard economy seat with an additional 5 to 7 inches of legroom and 1 to 2 inches of seat width. There's no other element of the seat that's very memorable or very strikingly different. So not a whole lot would be the short answer to your question. My seat's a bit different because it has the structural integrity and I guess the look and feel of what you would find in business class, but at a very different weight category, at a very different cost, price point, of course, for the airlines. But ultimately, what it's trying to solve is that if airlines can offer a better product in this middle cabin or this middle class of service, there's definitely a higher willingness to pay from the traveler. So in that sense, the ROI on investing in a product that's more desirable for a modern traveler is really a win-win for the airline plus the customer. And that's really the value proposition that we are trying to create for the airlines.
Fantastic. I guess it begs one question comes to my mind. Why do you think it is that some of these other, airline seat companies and these manufacturers haven't innovated? Like, I feel like seats, correct me if I'm wrong, they've been basically the same for a couple decades, maybe incremental changes. Why do you think that, there has been kind of that lack of innovation until now?
Well, it's funny. I keep looking at pictures of Pan Am in 1970, and I wonder how have we come so far away from that. Deregulation in the late 70s did not help. It meant that airlines had to compete without any sort of subsidies. So the cost of delivering very high and expensive services and flying to certain cities was very high. And so they wanted to reduce those costs. And the only way to do that is to try to find a way to squeeze more seats on a plane so your revenue on each flight goes up. And personal comfort and passenger experience and how you treat customers was just not a priority. And I think in many ways, travelers would agree it still isn't. And it's actually gotten even worse. And it's going to be even worse after this COVID passes. So you're just kind of delaying the inevitability of negative innovation. But from a risk standpoint, the aerospace industry is very conservative. They don't want things to change too quickly because they have to play catch up, and it's all about safety and regulation and delivering a high quality product. Seat manufacturers today have focused all of their investment in business class because for the past 20 years, business class was a major generator of the higher margins for airlines. And business travelers don't care about price. They're usually price inelastic. So all the products that made that experience and the value of that seat higher were obviously done pretty close to perfection. I don't really know how business class could get any better, quite frankly, in the industry today. But the future is now seeing that a lot of travelers who don't justify paying that premium for business class, well, where are they seated? Well, they're seated in economy class, quite frankly, most of the time. And if there were a product that was more aligned with what they would they would expect to have on these long distance flights, they are certainly willing to pay a premium. They're just not going to pay a 7x premium. They might pay a 2 or 3x premium. So airlines are going to be forced to meet their consumers in the middle, not acquiesce to all their demands, not make things unreasonable, but they're going to have to meet them halfway. And that's precisely what this product does. And now more than ever, it forces airlines to think about the needs of the modern traveler. And the modern traveler is someone who's much younger, who prefers traveling very often, but very briefly. And what that means is when they fly somewhere, time is of the essence. They cannot be further delayed with the effects of jet lag. That is not an option. Now, they also shop on price because travelers are not stupid, but there's a middle ground. And when people do begin to consider the effects of, their physical and their mental environment on these long distance flights, they are willing to pay a premium. But there's currently no piece of hardware that satisfies that need for them to buy in the market today.
Got it. So you did touch on one part that I wanted to discuss, and that's, kind of the risk aversion of the industry and, how rigorous it is to get something FAA qualified. As that's definitely something, that you guys are preparing for and going to have to go through, can you maybe talk investors through just briefly, what does that process entail to give them a better understanding and expectation in terms of, what is it that you have to do in order to get qualified and how long could that potentially take?
So there are two tests that we have to pass. The first one is called a technical standard order, or a TSO, and these are issued by any aviation authority by country or by region. So there's an authority in Europe, there's an authority in Canada, Australia, China, and the US. And reciprocally speaking, once you get it certified within one body, it's basically the word of law, or it's recognized with the others. So the first and most difficult challenge is to certify the actual design and structural integrity of the seat itself. And that requires physical testing at different Mach speeds, because you're obviously dealing with a very kind of a zero gravity environment. So the movement of structures and people affects it very, very greatly. And so once those tests are done, and many of them can be simulated, about 80% of them can be simulated. But the final test is we actually have to build a mock-up structure of the seat and roll it down an actual sled at a speed of between 300 to 500 miles per hour. And hopefully that structure will not break to a point where it will kill the customer inside of it, or it will block their access to leave the aircraft in the event of a plane crash. Those are the main issues. It's, will the seat break if the plane crashes? And can someone get out of the seat and out of the plane within a certain amount of time? And those tests are all in the technical standard order requirement. So once that is received, then we apply for what they call a standard type certificate. And what it means is the FAA or the other bodies, they say, okay, this seat is now approved to be installed in these different types of aircraft. And the reason why they're specific is because every aircraft has different requirements, right? They have a look and feel that's very different. They have different structural dimensions inside and structural integrity. And so the seat needs to pass muster and being able to be installed correctly in those different aircraft families. And so we would obviously target our product on more traditional long-haul aircraft, wide body, 2 aisles where you would fly very, very long distances at one time. And so those will typically be a Boeing 777 or an Airbus A350 or a Boeing 787. So we would make sure that our seat is compatible to be installed in those different aircraft families.
Got it. Let's transition a little and maybe talk about your potential business model. So can you talk about, who are your potential customers? Are you selling to the airlines, and what does that sales cycle and process kind of look at? And, what is it like a one-time purchase where they're going to buy these seats from you, or are there kind of ongoing revenue opportunities? Would you be able to break that down for us?
Yes. So the main revenue opportunity that we see is kind of a mix of IP licensing, as well as engineering and product development services. And these would be mostly for the customers where we sell the product. So a transport provider like an airline, a train company, a bus company, the military if you're selling B2G, And how it would work is essentially the value of RP increases significantly once the product is certified. And once that happens, then we can actually sell it as a SKU. So we really only have to find one airline, literally one customer. I don't even care how many planes they have. They could have 2 planes. It's irrelevant. Once it passes that hurdle and the commercial industry adopts it and it's actually put into a plane and sold to a customer, the expectations in the entire industry change overnight. So all of a sudden, you've now created the expectation that a premium economy class customer can lie flat in that seat, means that everybody else is going to race to catch up as quickly as they can because they want to protect their marketing ability with their own customers, but also they don't want to be left behind. So we're looking for that first and most forward-thinking airline to help us be kind of an advocate, a product advocate, but also an engineering partner to help develop this. And over the course of a number of years, which we estimate will be about 3, we'll go through different trials with different types of customers, but ultimately this seat can be sold to any transportation provider that offers a long distance service in any capacity.
Got it. So you're talking potentially buses, trains, like that type of thing, in addition to planes?
Exactly. Obviously,
Okay.
the lowest hanging fruit, the most impactful contribution to the travel industry would be commercial airlines, but it doesn't have to start there. So we are buying ourselves very creatively about 3 years of timing when the entire industry is nothing but negative. And if we can innovate and find progress and actually move further ahead faster, then we're going to be in a much better position in the future.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned, okay, let's assume that you're able to get that one airline that takes the leap, that, gets you approved and installed. You said, kind of to requote or paraphrase, that everyone else would be playing catch up, right? Now, does
Mhm.
that mean that are there other potential seat manufacturers who'd be trying to, imitate what you guys have done? Or I guess what I'm getting at is what's your defensibility? So if you're first to market, do you have IP? Do you have other things like that that really protect your position? Or how do you look at the potential competition in that state?
Competition is always a good thing because it keeps the realities in check. And once you have a successfully vetted product that's certified and actually sold, people will try to create things that look very similar at different price points. Unfortunately, the only exception to that rule is usually in industries where the cost and the barriers to entry are very, very high. And they're high in this industry because the approach that new product developers take to market is always to get to see what the airline thinks first, not what the actual customer thinks. Customer meaning the traveler, the beneficiary of this product, who's actually going to enter their credit card details and buy it. And so we took a different approach. We actually designed something and immediately marketed that in a B2C capacity. So all of our PR is directed at people, end users and beneficiaries. What do you think about this? How much would you pay for this seat? And we're basically collecting that data and bringing it back to the airlines, having done most of their market research for them, and saying, we've already proven demand. Now let's talk about pricing. How many would you like to buy? So the conversation becomes a lot faster when we know that we can already determine what airlines customers want. And that enables us to have a bit of a head start that really nobody else can, because they're focused on products that are already being sold in the industry at much larger volume, which are economy seats, business class seats, and all. Most of these engineering companies or these manufacturers, they focus on maintenance too. So they'll do like cabin retrofits. They'll basically move seats out. That's a large part of the business, all the service fees that they make from that. And that's not going to change. But the only class of service in commercial aviation that's ever grown in terms of value and demand is premium economy class. So that's where we see the most growth opportunity. But airlines still don't believe in it now because they're worried about survival. And so if we can just distract them from focusing on that and continue to think about innovation, we think this product has a very good position when that time comes.
Good to know. Yeah, and I guess, I'm thinking from the perspective of a lot of the potential investors who might be looking at your campaign. I think that they see a lot of, we'll say, tech software companies, and they have kind of an idea of like evaluating, how do you sort of go about looking at a business like that, where you guys are going to be having, manufacturing and supply chain and all these other things on top of it as well. What are you doing to ensure that kind of that holistic look at your business is going to be successful? Do you have partnerships, or like what's your plan in terms of the long term for that?
Well, we'd like to simplify the end goal, and we'd like to simplify the exit strategy. So to that end, we are still considering the viability and the expense of building a manufacturing business from scratch. It might not need to be that way. We might just be able to outsource manufacturing of the seat to a strategic partner or another vendor, which we're already engaged with now for questions around product development, engineering, certification, because that's all they do. That's what they do all the time with their different seat concepts. But more than likely, this will probably be some sort of an IP or some sort of a quasi IP transaction where, and we've seen this in the industry before. There's been a lot of vertical integration where manufacturing companies, OEMs, will see value in high density seating that offers something unique and different, and they'll buy it to maintain control over how it's marketed in the future and ultimately how it's produced and sold. And of course, we can also sell it ourselves. But the other idea, which is a little crazier, I'm not going to lie, but when this concept was first started, there was a lot of negativity because people thought that the airlines would just be too conservative to see the light at the very end of the tunnel. And the recommendation was, why don't you just start your own airline? You already own the IP. You can certify the seat. Just start an airline. Use all the marketing data you have from consumers you've already spoken to, and just get them to buy tickets on your own operator. So that very well might be a consideration in the future. It's a very different take on a startup aviation project, but it controls from an end-to-end standpoint the entire customer experience, and that's potentially there could be more value there. We'll have to see how the economy improves and really what trade-offs people will be forced to make in the future, because right now there's just a lot of things that people don't know. No one knows what the outcome of this will be.
Yeah, have you guys been seeing an impact in terms of the current economic situation in COVID-19 and all the restrictions on travel, or have you adjusted course, I guess I'll say, in the past couple months, or what's that story?
Well, we don't sell any travel products. We're a B2B hardware provider or a design company. So to that end, I mean, people are still having to think about these things. They're not necessarily paying for them right now, but we've already done all the legwork 2 years ago. So now we are in a product certification mode. That's our modus operandi right now. And until we can get through that and either complete it knowing that it cannot be certified, in which case it's kind of a hard no, a hard stop, or we might have to tweak the design or make it look a little bit different in order to pass muster. We think we've been able to give ourselves enough time to come to that conclusion.
All right. And maybe to start wrapping things up, but could you tell us a little bit more about the team? So, you are the founder and CEO. Who else is on your team that's working on Zephyr Aerospace?
So I'm the sole founder of the company. We do have a couple key advisors that do assist with other parts of the business. We have a man named Paul Wild, who was actually the inventor of the world's first lie flat business class seat for British Airways back in 1997. That was when the product first launched. So that was when the expectation of a business class traveler was, I can sleep. So he managed that entire product and project implementation for British Airways. He's originally from the UK. After that, he went on to work at BMW Design Works and did a lot of automobile and aerospace design for different seating companies. And now he has his own branding and marketing firm where he helps companies like Delta and JetBlue rebrand products and find better ways to connect with their travelers and their customers. The other advisor we have is also from the UK. His name is Joe Ferry. He was actually the head of design for Virgin Atlantic for about 15 years, which is a very well-known and very well-awarded airline from a customer service standpoint. So he was a stakeholder in the entire customer journey from design to engineering to onboard delivery of various services. We have a couple of other advisors that assist us with engineering and certification. They're both based in Dallas, Texas, and they've worked for competing seat manufacturers for comprehensively, I think, over 45 years. So they're more on, kind of advising us on how to build this and how to certify it, what tests are required, and how to liaison with all the regulatory people involved.
All right. And one last question, at least on my end. You mentioned at the very beginning of the interview, that this is the first product that you guys have in the market. Do you have any other kind of longer term vision for Zephyr Aerospace, and what does that potentially look like?
The longer term vision is essentially to find a solution that works for any mode of transport. And airlines the aerospace industry is much different from the train industry or from the bus industry. So we hope to have a product that can meet the needs of those types of transportation providers in due course and in due time.
Awesome. Well, I think that's for the most part pretty good on my end. Is there anything else that we didn't cover, Jeff, that you want to bring up or mention?
I don't think so. I would just say for anyone who's listening who has supported the campaign or who is considering that it will be a very long journey, but we are doing everything we can to help improve the state of air travel for everyone, all shapes and sizes of travelers.
Awesome. Thank you very much again for your time today, Jeff. Again, if anyone's interested and the campaign's still open, they can check out and learn more at republic.co. And thanks again, Jeff.
Thanks for your time. Have a good day.